Welcome to Sleepy Histories. Tonight, we'll drift gently through the quiet corners of the past. A soft, unhurried journey to help you unwind and rest. If you enjoy these stories, the best way to support the channel is by subscribing. It helps us keep making more peaceful videos like this one. And if you have a favorite wind-down routine or trick that helps you fall asleep, feel free to share it in the comments. You might help someone else drift off too. Now, settle in. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Take a deep breath. And let's begin.
Tonight, we'll walk in the sandals of a Roman general and drift through the quiet world of command, from morning inspections to evening rations, from banners and horns to the hush of discipline and trust. We'll explore how legions were moved, fed, and held together, not with haste, but with rhythm. The air is still cool, just before dawn, as you step onto the rise above the marching camp. The hill is gentle, worn smooth by wind and rain, and the ground beneath your caligay is dry and firm. A low mist clings to the hollows, curling between the trees like pale smoke from an unseen fire. From here, the world stretches out in hushed colors. Bluish hills far to the west, a scattering of trees along the stream below, and, faintly, the dark lines of the castra behind you. A Roman army at rest, laid out in perfect geometry, even in foreign soil. You are the Dux, the general in command of a Roman field army. And as you stand here, wrapped in your cloak, with the mist just beginning to lift and the sun not yet cresting the hills, you are already at work. This moment, quiet and solitary, is one of the few in your day when no one is speaking to you, when no questions are being asked, when no scrolls need signing. You take it slowly. The hill is not high, but high enough, and it offers you what every Roman general craves more than anything: perspective. You scan the land, not just for enemies. That part will come later. For now you are looking for something subtler. How the earth lies, how it folds and opens, where water runs, where trees thicken, where a road might be hidden just beyond the crest. You note the line of sight between your hill and the road junction to the east, the shape of the valley, the gap in the trees that might serve as a rallying point. You are not planning a battle yet, but you are preparing for one, slowly, silently, in the back of your mind. A general in Rome is more than a warrior. You are magistrate and planner, father and symbol. You command not just soldiers, but systems, logistics, morale, cohesion, discipline, diplomacy. Your men may not know all that you carry in your thoughts, but they feel its weight in the rhythm of their days. Behind you, the castra stirs. You hear it as a kind of breathing, tent flaps rustling, iron tools clinking against shields, the low voices of sentries changing shifts. No one rushes. Even waking is done in order. Roman camps wake like Roman machines, smoothly, predictably, one piece at a time. The camp is laid out to a pattern so familiar it could be drawn blindfolded. A rectangle, always, with rounded corners, surrounded by ditch and rampart. The main streets, the Via Praetoria, the Via Principalis, run like bones through the body of the camp. The general's tent, your own praetorium, lies at the center, along with the Ides, where the legion's standards rest under guard. Each centuria has its assigned place. Each soldier knows, even in the dark, exactly where to pitch his tent. The camp is not just a place to sleep. It is a symbol of discipline. An army that sleeps in rows will march in lines. An army that wakes with order will not falter at the first clash. You begin your descent from the hill. The air is warming slightly now, and somewhere a mule brays as it is led to water. The soldiers you pass greet you quietly. No salutes, just the respectful nods of men who have seen their commander walk among them before. You nod in return. You do not need to speak. You are here to be seen. The presence of a Roman general is part of his command. Your authority comes not just from your imperium, granted by senate or people, but from the calm with which you move through your army, from your steadiness, from your silence. In your tent, scrolls await you. Reports from scouts, speculatores, who rode out the day before. An update from the quaestor on the state of the flour ration. A note from a centurio requesting replacement sandals for 20 men whose soles have worn through after 10 days on rocky roads. You answer nothing immediately. First, you sit with your legatus and your chief tribuni. The plan for the day must be reviewed. Will the legion march? Rest? Build a fortified outpost? Is there word from the governor of the province, or a message from Rome? The decisions are yours, but they must be made within the rhythm of the army's life. You must allow for hunger, for sore feet, for the wounded. The men need movement, but not too much. They need rest, but not sloth. And always, they need to feel that they are being led. So you give your orders. A march to the ridge where a fort will be begun. Half rations of wine today. A smaller detachment will be sent to collect timber. The engineers will begin work on a watchtower. Each instruction passes outward like a ripple from your hand to the farthest tent peg. And still you move. You walk the length of the Via Principalis, nodding to a standard bearer, inspecting a line of mules yoked to wagons. A cook waves a ladle in greeting. A young soldier, barely more than a boy, tightens the straps of his lorica segmentata and stands a little taller as you pass. You say nothing. Your silence is not aloofness. It is structure. It is reassurance. It says, this is a normal day. And in the life of the Roman army, normality is strength. By midday, the camp is humming. Tents are being packed, supplies inventoried, weapons checked. You hear the cornison's testing his horn, a few brief notes echoing across the stones. A cart groans under the weight of iron-tipped stakes. The legion is preparing to move. But you return, for just a moment, to your hill. From here, you look back at what you have shaped, at the legion, not in battle, but in its daily form, organized, alert, methodical, quiet, a creature of will and memory and shared labor. You breathe in the warm scent of dust and oiled leather. Somewhere far off, a raven cries. The sun is higher now, gold and white above the trees, and the mist has fully lifted. You do not smile, but you feel something like satisfaction. Not for a victory, but because the shape of your army has held. The Roman general does not shout. Even in the moments before battle, even as thousands of men shift into formation and the camp grows quiet with anticipation, he does not need to raise his voice. His words, like his presence, move quietly through the body of the legion, steady, structured, and already familiar. A Roman army does not rely on improvisation. It does not lurch forward on the strength of a single fiery speech or a clever idea shouted in the chaos of war. It runs instead on structure, on repetition, on systems that stretch from the general's tent all the way to the youngest recruit at the edge of the marching column. The general speaks to his legati, his senior deputies, in the early morning or late evening. The tone is calm, the conversation deliberate. If the legion is to march, or fortify, or engage, the orders are given clearly and without embellishment. Short phrases, expected terms. Decumana porta aperienda est. Open the rear gate. Machinatores procedant. Send forward the engineers. The legati carry the message to the tribuni militum, each overseeing a portion of the army, and then to the centuriones, the true backbone of Roman communication. Each centurio knows how to speak to his men, knows which soldier listens well, which one asks too many questions, which one hesitates unless given a reason. And so the order ripples outward. It may pass through 5 or 6 voices before it reaches the rank and file, but it loses nothing in the translation, because each link in the chain knows what to say and how to say it. And most of all, they know why it is being said, because this is not the first time the order has been given. Drills, drills, and more drills. Every soldier in the legion has practiced the march order, the formation call, the alarm at night. They know the trumpet signals. They know the voice of their centurio. They know the standard-bearers' movements as well as they know the sound of their own breathing. A horn sounds, just 3 short blasts, and men are moving. Cloaks are fastened, kits are lifted, the standards rise, the legion is in motion. No one panics. No one asks where they are going. They trust the message because they trust the pattern. And pattern is the real language of command. The general understands this. He uses it to speak without speaking. When he walks the Via Principalis in the morning, men nod quietly. When he pauses near the granary, the quaestor steps forward with a report. When he calls for his engineer in the evening, the entire camp knows something is being built. Each of these gestures says something, and because he does not use his voice carelessly, his silence also speaks. If a patrol returns late and he says nothing, the message is heard. If he visits a wounded soldier and leaves behind a nod of approval, that too is received, passed between comrades with the same reverence as a commendation. The general knows that in Rome, the highest power is not to be loud, but to be legible. He is not mysterious, he is structured. And in battle, that structure becomes lifeline. When the lines form and the enemy is near, the general does not shout orders across the field. That would be wasted breath. Instead, he positions himself to observe, often on a rise behind the lines, sometimes on horseback, sometimes standing still with arms crossed and the corneton by his side. He watches. Then, when the moment is right, a signal is given. A horn blast, a single long note, a colored banner, unfurled and raised. A mounted messenger sent with a simple phrase, Secunda cohort ad sinistram procedat. The second cohort, move left. No poetry, no drama, just clarity. And the army responds. It responds because it has heard these words before, in drills, in practice, in camp. The soldiers know what to do because they have been taught what to expect. The command is not a surprise, it is a return to something known. Even when plans change, the response is structured. A general may order a retreat, but he does so with the same rhythm. Horn blast, banner, messenger. The units pivot. The rear guard reforms. The baggage is protected. There is no stampede, just a new pattern, already rehearsed. And in camp, when the day is done, and the soldiers are eating or tending to their gear, this language continues. Quieter now, but still present. The regular clang of hammer on anvil, the wooden thump of a training sword, the soft repetition of a sentry changing watch with the next man in line. These are not accidents, they are communication. The general's true command is not in his voice, but in the fact that everything continues to function, even when he is silent, that the army continues to respond even when he is elsewhere. His decisions travel not on paper, but in memory, not through shouting, but through structure, not through charisma, but through rhythm. Because in the Roman army, command is not a performance. It is a pattern, repeated so often that even in the dark, even under fear, even far from home, every soldier can hear it clearly. Let's pause here, in that calm, where signals become instinct and quiet becomes strength. And when we're ready, we'll continue gently onward into the next soft cadence of Roman command. In the Roman army, discipline is not thunder. It does not arrive with sudden shouts or harsh blows, though those too have their place. Rather, true discipline moves like water in a carved channel, worn smooth by years of flow. It is not imposed all at once, but pressed softly into daily habit, until it becomes the natural shape of things. As general, you do not think of discipline as punishment. You think of it as architecture. You can feel it in the bones of the castra, where every tent is pitched with precision, every fire is banked the same way, and even in the dark, a man can find his post by feel alone. You can hear it in the regular footfalls of sentries making their rounds, armor creaking softly under the weight of duty, not fear. You can taste it in the morning routine. Grain ration measured with familiar scoops, bread baked in camp ovens, not rushed, not burned. Discipline is everywhere. Each man in the Legion is responsible for his own equipment. His helmet, his sandals, his gladius, short and deadly, cleaned nightly even if it was never drawn. There is no ceremony in this, no audience, just the quiet pride of readiness. A soldier who maintains his kit maintains his mind. You encourage your officers not to command by volume, but by example. A centurio who drills with his men earns more respect than one who waits under the awning. A primus pilus who sharpens his own blade shows what matters. When a soldier sees that no one is above the pattern, he finds comfort in belonging to it. Discipline is not perfection. It is constancy. You remember once, early in your career, watching a contubernium, a tent group of 8, repairing their fire pit after it had cracked in a frost. No one told them to. They simply did it, because it was the expected shape of the day. You never forgot that. That shape is everything. Rome's enemies often fight with bravery. They charge with fury, with spirit. But the Legion answers not with passion, but with rhythm. Formation, advance, halt, throw the pilum, draw the sword, press forward. These are not actions of inspiration. They are the result of drills repeated on gravel practice grounds, under sun and rain, until the motion flows even when the mind is clouded by fear or noise. And when something breaks, because something always does, discipline is what fills the gap. A shield slips, a man stumbles, a line thins under pressure. But the soldier next to him knows the motion. He steps forward, fills the space. The centurio raises his vine staff, not in panic but with precision, and points. The formation adjusts. Order holds, not because anyone told it to, because everyone expected it to. Discipline is also how the army rests. When the horn sounds at day's end, the camp does not collapse into disarray. Tents go up, animals are fed, gear is inspected. There is no scrambling for dinner because rations were issued an hour earlier. Firewood was collected before noon. The cook knows his portion. The water-bearer knows his bucket. And in the quiet of evening, the general walks the rows. He doesn't say much, but he sees. Boots lined up outside the tent. Neatly, helmets hung on pegs. One man polishing a buckle, another mending a sandal strap. No one looks up. They know who passes. And in that moment, the discipline you've built becomes visible, not in posture or parade, but in the soft murmur of preparation. Not for battle, just for tomorrow. That is enough. You know that harsh discipline has its place. Rome allows for it. A thief may be flogged, a deserter may be stoned by his own comrades. A unit that flees in battle may face decimation. 1 in 10 executed by lot. The rest made to sleep outside the camp, without fire, without food. But these are not tools you use freely. You know that fear wears thin and soon breaks. It is steadiness that endures. You punish rarely, and when you do, it is swift and calm, never as spectacle, never out of anger. The message must be clearer than the punishment itself. This is not chaos. This is maintenance. And sometimes you show leniency. You forgive a small lateness after a long march. You overlook a dull blade if the soldier is limping. You accept silence from a man who has just seen a comrade buried. Because discipline is not rigidity. It is memory. It adapts without forgetting what it is. The men feel this. They trust it. And so, when a horn sounds in the middle of the night, an alarm, perhaps, or an unexpected order, they rise not with confusion, but with motion. They know where their boots are. They know where their weapons lie. They know where to go. That, too, is discipline. And when the threat passes and the general returns to his tent, he does so knowing that no system, no scroll, no set of orders could achieve what quiet expectation does. You do not lead with noise. You lead with rhythm. And in that rhythm the legion holds, not by force but by familiarity. Let's rest in that steadiness now. Just a while longer, before we drift onward to another quiet ritual in the life of Roman command. Before a soldier marches, before he lifts his shield, before he drills or sharpens a blade, he eats, and before any of that happens, someone, somewhere, makes sure that food is there. For the Roman general, this task is always near at hand. Less visible than battle plans, less glamorous than discipline, but just as vital. Because a legion cannot think, cannot march, cannot hold the line on an empty stomach. Even a short campaign demands constant feeding. 5,000 men, give or take, plus camp followers, grooms, scouts, engineers, then animals, oxen, mules, horses, all of them needing grain, water, forage, oil, every day, without fail. The burden falls on the quester and his staff, of course, but the general watches closely. He knows that the first sign of decline in an army is not a lost skirmish. It's a skipped meal. The Roman army does not rely on external supply lines the way later armies would. It carries much of its sustenance with it. Each soldier bears a portion, several days' worth of frumentum or raw grain in a leather satchel strapped to his cross-pole. Alongside it, a water skin, a bit of oil, a measure of salt. This is not convenience, it is design. Every legionary is trained to cook. At the end of the march, when camp is made and gear is set aside, the fire is built, not centrally, but within the contubernium, the group of 8 men who share a tent, a fire, and a rhythm. They know who gathers wood, who grinds the grain into coarse meal, who kneads the dough, who stirs the pot of lentils, or sprinkles in crushed herbs for flavor. No orders are needed. It happens as it always has. This quiet choreography is not just survival, it is morale. The general may not visit every fire, but he walks the central paths. He breathes the scent of flatbread crisping on hot stones. He sees men seated with helmets beside them and spoons in hand, tired but eating, talking, laughing perhaps, sharing the small ease of hot food after a cold march. He knows this is where unity lives. Sometimes the rations are enough, sometimes they are stretched thin. A long campaign might mean reduced portions, more meal, less meat, less wine, a thinner stew. The men will grumble. But if the distribution is fair, they will accept it. Fairness matters more than plenty. A wise general ensures the officers eat the same as the rank and file, that the baker's flour is not finer than the soldier's, that the last sack of olives is shared, not hidden. This kind of justice is not written, but it is remembered. On days when foraging is permitted, the velites go out in small groups. They return with wild greens or mushrooms, or if fortune smiles, a goat or boar. The camp cooks stretch the stew. New smells rise in the evening air. The general knows not to underestimate this joy. A single fresh meal can lift an entire cohort's spirit. A hot broth on a cold night can steady a wavering will. He remembers this, plans for it, encourages it. And on feast days, when the calendar permits, rations are increased. Wine flows more freely. Perhaps there is a roast, perhaps fruit if there is any. No drums, no fanfare, just a slightly warmer night under the same sky. Still, even in celebration, the shape holds. Fires are watched, portions counted. No one eats until duty is done. This is discipline wrapped in comfort, and it continues even on the march. At midday, when the sun is high and the column has covered its morning distance, the general may signal a halt. The men sit in rows, backs resting against their packs. Bread is pulled from bags, dried figs shared, water skins passed. There is no need for tables, no dishes, just food and silence. Even the animals are watered in rhythm. In this, too, the general finds structure. He must balance calories with distance. He must plan water stops before the heat strikes. He must ensure that the mule drivers know when to pace the wagons, when to push, when to rest. He must guard the baggage train, not for gold, but for flour. In war, battles may be won with steel, but wars are won with bread. Even before combat, the general plans the meals. He might permit a light breakfast, porridge and water, but no heavy eating. He wants the men alert, not sluggish. After the clash, when wounds are dressed and the dust has settled, he ensures the cooks are ready. Warm food soothes the nerves. It reminds the men they are still whole. At night, the fires flicker again. You can hear the hiss of pots, the low murmur of conversation, spoons clinking gently on wooden bowls, occasionally a laugh. And the general, standing at the edge of the camp, sees the shape of the legion in these fires, not in the gleam of armor, not in the sharpness of formation, but in this warmth, in this calm, in the fact that for one more night the army eats. He exhales, not because the work is done, but because the pattern has held. Let us stay here a moment, in the firelight, before we drift onward to the next quiet thread that binds a Roman army together. There is something in the camp tonight, a feeling not quite seen, not quite named. It moves through the rows of tents, quiet as smoke. It lingers in the tone of a conversation, in the silence between sentences. It flickers behind the eyes of a veteran as he sharpens his blade for the third time, though it's already clean. This is morale. And though the Roman general may command 1,000 things, marches, signals, construction, battle lines, this one thing cannot be ordered. It must be felt, tended, understood. It is not the same as cheerfulness. It is not the same as rest. It is the deeper sense within a soldier that his hardship has meaning, that his labor is respected, that his suffering is not wasted, and that he is not alone. The general begins with structure, because nothing destroys morale faster than chaos. A soldier who wakes to uncertainty, unsure when he will eat, where he must go, whether his orders will change before noon, cannot remain steady for long. So the general builds routine, the same hour for waking, the same drumbeat for assembly, the same trusted officers delivering the same familiar commands. Even in unfamiliar territory, the pattern holds. Even when the enemy is near, the rhythm continues. The sun rises, the cook fires are lit, gear is inspected, lines are formed. This repetition does not dull the men. It steadies them. It tells them that someone is thinking clearly, that the shape of their lives remains, even when the future does not. And still the general knows, pattern alone is not enough. So he listens. He watches, not just for violations of rule, but for shifts in feeling. He notices when a campfire goes quiet too quickly, when two soldiers speak too softly for comfort, when laughter disappears from the line. He asks his tribuni what they've heard. He pays attention to small changes. A new silence, a missing gesture, a soldier who no longer sits with his contubernium, but lingers alone with his ration. Not every problem needs a speech, but every problem needs to be seen. Sometimes morale is frayed by fear, rumors of enemy movements, whispers of being surrounded. The general answers not with denial, but with calm. He does not promise safety. He promises readiness. He reminds his officers that steadiness spreads. One quiet face in a crowd can steady a dozen more. And when a unit suffers, after a loss, after injury, after burying one of their own, the general does not look away. He attends the rites. He allows grief to pass through the camp without shaming it. He offers a word sometimes, but often only presence. A silence that says, "I saw what happened, and I am still here." In this, too, morale grows, because morale is not about ease, it is about meaning. And men endure more than they believe they can, if they believe it matters. The general makes sure it does. He ensures fairness, that punishments are proportionate, that rewards are not forgotten, that the same rules apply to the officer's tent as to the lowest contubernium. The men must see that the burden is shared. He finds opportunities to recognize endurance, a word of praise to a cohort that built a bridge faster than expected, an extra ration of wine after a storm-soaked march, a public commendation for a scout who brought back a vital message. Not flattery, not ceremony, just small signs that effort is seen. Sometimes morale is lifted by something even quieter. A day of rest, a dry pair of boots after a week in mud, the chance to write a letter and see it carried home, a new story told around a fire, a fig shared between friends. The general makes space for these things, not because they are strategic, but because they are human. He knows that an army does not move only by order, it moves by will, and will is fed in silence just as much as in song. There are also the emblems of unity, the signa, the standards carried at the head of every cohort, the aquila, the eagle, sacred to the legion, guarded day and night. A soldier sees that standard and remembers he is part of something larger than himself, something with history, with honor. The general ensures that the standard is present not just in battle, but in ritual. It is saluted, it is honored, and in its presence, soldiers feel continuity. Even in a foreign land, even in snow or heat or famine, the general also understands that morale, like fire, must be shielded from the wind. When defeat comes, and it always does sometimes, he does not flinch. He does not lie. He acknowledges it. He names it. He holds it steady in his palm and says, "This, too, will pass." Then he gives the men something to do, a road to repair, a fort to raise, a tree to fell. Purpose follows despair like sunlight after storm. Not quickly, but surely. And when the army begins to recover, he marks the moment. He names the cohort that held the line. He thanks the wounded who returned to duty. He places memory in order. And order again becomes hope. Now, as night settles across the camp, you, the general, walk slowly along the ramparts. You do not carry a torch. You let your eyes adjust to the dark. The fires in the distance flicker gently. The silhouettes of men gathered in circles, eating, speaking, resting, cast long shadows on the earth. A soft laugh drifts across the stillness. The guard at the eastern gate stands straight, pilum in hand. He nods as you pass. He does not smile, but you feel something in his posture. Trust, not because the path ahead is certain, but because the foundation beneath his feet has held, because in the quiet, in the pattern, in the fairness, in the care, morale has kindled again, soft, steady, low like a coal in ash. And that is enough. So we rest here now, in that warmth, before we drift toward the last gentle reflection that closes our journey. Before the clash of shields and the thunder of hooves, there is stillness. A hush settles over the camp as the first hint of sunlight brushes the eastern horizon. This is the hour of preparation, the quiet before the storm, when a Roman general readies not only his legions but himself for what is to come. The dawn muster. The horn's single note cuts through the morning air, gentle yet insistent. It rouses the soldiers from sleep, some snug in their woolen cloaks, others already rising to feel the first chill of the day. There is no panic, only purpose. Each man slides into his armor methodically. Greaves first, then the segmented lorica, the focal wrapped loosely around the neck, the scutum secured upon the forearm. Instructors move among them, offering a word or clasping a strap, ensuring that every cuff and buckle is set with precision. At the center of the camp, the Via Principalis and Via Praetoria converge in front of the general's tent. Here stands the Praetorium, its canvas walls bearing the faded standards of Rome's banners. The general emerges, helmet in hand, cloak draped over his shoulder. He surveys the assembled legion, not as a mass of men, but as thousands of individual faces, each bearing the weight of duty. He waits until the formations settle, the heavy cohorts arranged in blocks, the velites, skirmishers at the front, the cavalry poised on the flanks. Final inspections and rituals. A centurion steps forward, carrying a small tripod of bronze. Within its shallow bowl lies incense, frankincense perhaps, mixed with a pinch of laurel leaves. The general lifts a handful and allows a wisp of smoke to rise, offering silent prayer to Mars, god of war, and to Jupiter, guardian of Rome. Even the most seasoned soldier bows his head. This ritual is not superstition. It is shared faith, a moment that binds the legion's countless hearts beneath a single cause. Meanwhile, the quaestor moves down the lines, checking the glint of pilum points and the tension of bowstrings. Water-bearers fill the legionaries' skins from barrels chilled by last night's breeze. A cook ladles out light gruel, wheat boiled with honey and water, to settle the stomach before exertion. The taste is humble, but the consistency builds strength that will carry men through sweat and dust. The general's orders. The general then speaks, softly, firmly, with the authority of experience. His words are clear and short. Cohos prima, tenete dextram, cohos secunda, parate ad tellum iactandum, velites, explorate flumen et silvam ad sinistram nostram. First cohort, hold the right. Second cohort, be ready to cast javelins. Skirmishers, scout the river and the forest to our left. Officers echo the commands, and within moments each cohort moves as though on a mechanism of living gears. Pilum shafts wobble as they are tested for straightness. Javelins are adjusted in straps. Cavalrymen check the fittings on their saddles and the sheen of their horses' coats. In the ordered tension of this final drill, there is calm, mental preparation, and unity. As the general walks along the front ranks, he speaks quietly to a wounded veteran standing by the rear guard. He places a hand to the man's shoulder, not a gesture of pity, but of recognition. The veteran nods, his eyes steeled by the memory of past campaigns. Elsewhere, two young legionaries share a silent glance, each offering the other a small smile. No words are needed. The bonds of shared hardship and loyalty are stronger than any speech. The general knows that battle is as much fought in the mind as on the field. so he allows a moment for everyone to breathe, to center themselves. A trumpet sounds a single long note, a call to attention and to heart. The legion stands ready, not out of fear, but out of unity. They have trained for this moment. They trust their equipment, their training, and each other. Deployment and the field of honor. Beyond the camp's ramparts lies the open ground where the earth has been cleared and leveled. Here, the general has marked lines in the soil, faint furrows indicating where the first cohorts will form. Engineers have staked down tents that now serve as barricades, and wagons are positioned to protect the flanks of the right wing. In the distance, the enemy's banners may be too small to see, but the general's scouts point to the gentle rise of a hill, the curve of a stream, the patch of woods that hides unknown dangers. The legion steps through the camp gates in measured progression. The ground shakes softly beneath armored feet. Shields click into place. Helmets lock with a final click. Spears are raised, glinting in the growing light. Each cohort finds its assigned position. First and third cohorts in the center, the fourth held in reserve, cavalry wings stretching wide. Behind them, engineers prepare trenches and obstacles. Onlookers, camp followers, and auxiliaries stand safely beyond. Silence and readiness. Now the air is charged, but stillness prevails. Not a shout, not a cry, not a warning, only the gentle rustle of tereges, leather strips, brushing against iron, and the distant murmur of soldiers adjusting their formation. The general stands at the highest point, gaze fixed on the field. He raises his hand, straight and unwavering, and waits for the signal that will break this calm. A trumpet sounds thrice. 2 short blasts, 1 long. The command to advance. The first steps toward action. Spears lower, shields lock forward. Staccato steps begin. The legion moves as one body, as a living wall of bronze and iron, pressing out from the camp into the open plain. Behind that wall stands the general, silent, assured, a pillar of control amid the approaching tumult. His task in this moment is not to fight, but to observe, to anticipate, to decide, to adjust formation by signal or messenger. It is the culmination of every sunrise muster, every ritual incense, every shared glance of trust and resolve. And though the battle is about to begin, the legion's heartbeat, its disciplined march, continues steadily, carrying the men forward together into history. Long before the first spear is thrown, long after the swords are sheathed, the mark of Roman power lies not in the battlefield, but in what is built. The Roman general knows this. He sees it not only in the moment of battle, but in the days before and the weeks after, when the legion becomes a quiet force of transformation. Not just soldiers, but builders. The camp as blueprint. Every evening, no matter how far the army has marched, a new camp must rise. This is not improvisation. It is not a scattering of tents or a vague sense of shelter. It is geometry, memory, ritual. The general signals the order. The architecti, Roman military engineers, step forward with measuring rods and groma frames. They walk in careful lines, pacing the dimensions of the camp. With a few swift marks, they lay out the Via Praetoria and Via Principalis, the roads that form the camp's spine. In less than an hour, the outline is clear. A rectangle with rounded corners, ditches dug, ramparts raised, gates established. north, south, east, and west. And when it is built, it looks as if it had always been there. Each tent goes where it always goes. The ovens, the latrines, the livestock, the tribunal, the praetorium, the standards. The pattern is fixed, burned into muscle memory. Even in the darkest forest, the Roman camp feels familiar, and it is the engineers who make it so. Bridges and roads. When the legion reaches a river, it does not halt. The general sends word. A bridge is needed. The fabbri, military craftsmen, begin cutting timber from nearby trees. Piles are driven into the riverbed using winches and levers. Ropes are lashed, planks laid. Within hours, sometimes a single day, a solid wooden bridge stretches from one bank to the other. Mules cross first, then wagons, then the heavy tread of the legion, and the march continues. If no trees are nearby, the general reconsiders his route. But more often, the army brings its tools with it: spades, hatchets, chisels, saws. Rome carries its roads in its wagons, and in time, literal roads do follow. A temporary supply line is hardened with gravel, drained with culverts, lined with milestones. Surveyors walk ahead with plumb lines and sighting poles. A path is made not just for this army, but for every army that will follow. The general knows, wherever his men walk today, merchants may follow tomorrow. Rome's strength is not only its speed, it is its permanence. Forts and forward posts. When the general identifies a strategic ridge or a crossing worth guarding, he signals for fortification. What follows is not guesswork. It is the application of centuries of knowledge. The engineers mark a square or rhomboid. Ditches are dug. Timber palisades are raised. Watchtowers appear at the corners. A gatehouse is built, flanked by archers and reinforced with stone if time permits. Inside, there is order. Barracks, storehouses, armories, cisterns. Sometimes a principia, a headquarters, is laid with a tiled floor and a small altar. If the fort is to endure, the general ensures a well is dug, even if it takes days. Clean water is worth delay. These forts are not crude shelters. They are outposts of civilization. The soldiers know it. The locals feel it. And the general, standing at the highest tower, looks out not with conquest in his mind, but with foundation. This is how territory is held, not only with spears but with walls, siegecraft and patience. When the army comes upon a walled city, rebel stronghold, mountain fortress, or enemy capital, the engineers prepare for war of another kind. This too is rhythm. The general orders a siege camp. Trenches are dug in rings, artillery assembled, ballistae and catapults constructed from pre-measured parts carried in wagons. Earthen ramps rise. Tortoises, protective shelters for sappers, are built from hides and timber. The work is hard, but not rushed. A siege is a matter of pressure, not panic. Some days the general watches the men dig layer by layer. He says little. He lets the engineers decide pace. Their decisions matter more than his in these hours. They know where the soil is soft, where the range is clearest, where to build a tower tall enough to match the enemy's. And when the time comes, he gives the signal. Stones fly, arrows arc. But even then, the general sees the structure of the moment, the way each piece has its place, each motion its meaning. Rome does not storm blindly. It unfolds like a plan, the mind behind the labor. For the general, These efforts are not separate from command. They are command. Every camp he lays, every fort he garrisons, every bridge he crosses is a message. To his army, you are safe, you are supported, your labor is honored. To his enemies, we are not just passing through, we remain. And at night, when the engineers return to their tents and the last hammer is quiet, he walks the perimeter. He sees a path where there was none, a fort where there was only wind, a road stretching into darkness. And he knows, tomorrow his army will move again. But something will remain. A structure, a shape, a trace of Rome, and that too is victory. Retreat is not failure. A Roman general knows this. He has learned it through years of campaigns, of near misses and narrow victories. There are times when the best path forward is to step back, quietly, deliberately, without fear. And when done well, retreat is not a break in order. It is a continuation of it. Reading the moment, it begins not with panic, but with observation. A flank is thinning. A cohort is exhausted. The enemy's reinforcements arrive faster than expected. A position once promising is now exposed. The general sees these signs, not as defeat, but as signals. He listens to the rhythm of the field. He watches how the dust moves, how the horns sound, how the standards shift. Then calmly, he acts. He sends a rider with sealed instructions. A banner is lowered and replaced. A horn sounds, 2 short blasts, one held long. To the trained ear, this is not confusion. It is coordination. The order is not run. It is withdraw, shielded in phase. The Roman army does not flee. It pivots. The mechanics of retreat. First, the forward cohorts disengage. Covered by archers or cavalry, they fall back in formation, shields raised, pilum held in reserve. They do not turn their backs. They move step by step, as if in a drill. Behind them, the second line reforms. Engineers open a pre-cleared path. Tents are already struck. The baggage train is mobilized, its oxen led, not rushed. The general moves to high ground. He watches. He gives no speeches. He raises no alarm. His presence alone signals control. At the camp gates, order waits. Guards regulate who enters first. Injured men are carried by pairs. Standards are secured in the center of camp. Medical tents are readied. There is no chaos, because this has been practiced before. Retreat is not an emergency. It is an option. Tending to the aftermath. Once the army is inside the walls, the gates close, but not with a crash. The sound is muted. Defensive lines are manned. Scouts are sent to watch the rear. Within the camp, the general walks slowly. He does not search for blame. He searches for shape. He asks the quartermaster how many carts made it back. He speaks with the tribune, not to scold, but to understand. What held? What failed? What surprised us? There is time later for reflection, for reports, for repair. But tonight, the work is more human. He ensures the injured are seen, that bread is shared evenly, that the cook fires are lit, even if rations are low. The army must not feel shame. It must feel continuity. Because tomorrow it must rise again. Rebuilding trust. The hardest task is not restoring gear, it is restoring belief. So the general begins small. He orders a minor drill at first light, not as punishment, but to re-establish rhythm, marching in ranks, calling out responses, lifting shields in unison, familiar motions, predictable steps. Men who lost heart find it again, not in speeches, but in movement. The general also finds a moment to recognize what went well. The cohort that held the gate, the scout who returned with word of the ambush, the engineer who rigged a bridge to collapse behind them. These stories are told, quietly, thoughtfully. They become part of the next day's campfire talk. And in this, morale is kindled once more. Facing uncertainty without collapse. Retreat leaves questions behind. Will the enemy pursue? Will the road ahead be passable? Will the next fort be strong enough? The general does not answer all of these, but he answers the deeper one, the one that hangs unspoken in every soldier's chest. Are we still an army? And through his steadiness, through the camp structure, through the familiar pulse of order restored, he replies, yes, not in words, in the way the tents are aligned, in the way the horn sounds at sunset, in the way the sentries relieve one another right on time. The legion is bent, but not broken, and the general is still watching the horizon, letting the night settle. That night the camp is quieter than usual. The fires burn lower, conversations are shorter, but they are still there. Bread is still eaten, helmets are still stacked. A soldier tunes a lyre with rough fingers and hums a slow song. The general walks the outer wall before sleep. He looks not to the battlefield they left, but to the road ahead. There will be another ridge to climb, another river to cross, another day when the legion spreads across a field, not in retreat, but in readiness. And when that day comes, it will come stronger, not weaker, because this night held. Let us rest in that knowledge now, and gently prepare to return to the quiet, final thoughts of our journey. Now the camp is still. Fires have burned down to quiet coals. The clink of armor, the murmur of commands, the rumble of wheels, all are gone, tucked into memory. A breeze stirs the edge of the general's cloak as he stands beneath the stars. Above him, the constellations drift, as they always have. The castra lies below, perfectly ordered, tents in rows, guards at post, shields stacked. The roads of the camp form a soft grid of shadows in the moonlight. Even now, even at rest, the army holds its shape. And the general, tired perhaps, but not shaken, feels the stillness settle around him. He does not think of glory, nor conquest, nor triumph. He thinks of rhythm, of how the legion moves and rests, of how discipline becomes comfort, of how each mornings and each march returns to pattern again and again, like waves on the shore. There will be more battles, more roads to walk, more camps to build, more bridges to raise, more rivers to cross, more letters sent home with dusty riders. But not tonight. Tonight the work is done. The legion breathes, the stars turn overhead. The general steps softly into his tent, and the flap falls behind him. Outside, the last torch gutters in its bracket, and all is calm. Sleep well now, and may the night hold you as gently as this legion holds its shape until morning.